Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now there's no denying that Crysis was both a visual and technological marvel when it released for PC back in 2007. I've covered it a few times on this channel, often including it in benchmarks and even dedicating a video to the game turned meme running on modern hardware. Chances are, if you've built or bought a mid-range gaming PC in the last few years, then the specs inside will be more than enough to handle Crysis at Full HD resolution with mostly decent frame rates to boot. Even so, it's probably not too far-fetched to expect a few significant dips here and there, especially if you insist on maxing out this title. It's quite amusing to look back on the minimum and recommended system requirements as you mutter, what were they thinking, under your breath. When using the suggested 8800 GTS, the game is certainly playable with the lower presets, but just so much as tickling the anti-aliasing options will have an adverse effect. Crysis also likes CPU clock speed. Multiple cores are a good start and it will try and make use of them, despite 2 cores of my i5 taking most of the brunt, but the game was created at a time when it seemed like superior performance would end up being determined by more gigahertz. That didn't go as expected. Hence why Crysis will still refuse to run consistently well. So why am I making another Crysis video today then? Well, after turning on my Xbox One X this morning with the intention of burning some hours in Red Dead, I happened to notice what I thought I had only ever imagined playing as a kid. Crysis on console. I've made the odd retrospective video on consoles before, but primarily focusing on a console game, well that's a new one. But this isn't just a game, it's an impressive representation of pushing hardware to its limit. To understand why this was such a brilliant achievement, we have to talk about the technology powering 7th generation consoles. Actually, yeah, let's not call it a brilliant achievement just yet. It was certainly an achievement, but we're going to have to talk about the performance before you make your minds up on that one. The 360 features a custom triple-core Xenon processor clocked at 3.2 GHz, with 1MB of L2 cache. The GPU was designed by ATI, now AMD, and was named Xenos. Xenos is clocked at 500 MHz and is capable of multi-sample anti-aliasing, as well as overheating. Remember the red ring of death on early models? The Xbox also features 512 MB of GDDR3 RAM clocked at 700 MHz, which is shared between both the CPU and GPU. It launched in November of 2005, 2 years before Crysis originally released on PC. The PlayStation 3 on the other hand is a little more complex and uses the Cell microprocessor. Clocked at 3.2 GHz and made up of 1 power processing element or PPE, and 6 accessible synergistic processing elements or SPEs, with a 7th dedicated to the operating system and an 8th as a spare. The GPU, known as RSX, is based on the NVIDIA G70 architecture, think GeForce 7 series, and is clocked at 500 MHz with 256 MB of GDDR3. It launched in 2006, 1 year before Crysis on PC. By today's standards, these technical specifications don't sound particularly impressive, but if you try running some of the more graphically intensive PC versions of Xbox 360 or PS3 titles on equivalent hardware, you may find yourself watching a PowerPoint presentation because consoles have far better optimization on their side. And that brings us to Crysis. Released as a digital-only download for £20 or $20 in 2011, this version is powered by CryEngine 3 instead of 2, the same as both successors to the original game, both of which were also released on last generation consoles. Certain assets and textures were overhauled, and changes to the lighting effects were made, resulting in a game that features a cooler colour palette. The game runs at 1152 by 720 on the 360 and 1024 by 720 on the PS3 with VSync. I'll be focusing on the Xbox version as it supports backwards compatibility, looks slightly better and runs much better too, especially on the Xbox One X. In fact, it targets 31 FPS, but it's not uncommon to see some drops down to the mid-20s. The FPS on the OG 360 will get even lower, around 20. However, it's the PlayStation 3 version that really suffered. I read a couple of old Digital Foundry articles and they wrote that despite the lower resolution, Crysis hit 12 FPS at its worst point. This is also why some believe that the Ascension level was removed from the console versions, as it was simply too system intensive. The developers said it was because it just wasn't fun to play, but I'm not sure I believe that. It's not entirely fair to compare the Xbox and PC versions side by side, as they are based on different engines, but I'm going to do so anyway, just in case any of you out there who aren't quite satisfied with how your PC runs the game want to give it a go on your Sony or Microsoft machine. All I've done is set things to 720p on the PC and enabled the very high preset while disabling all forms of anti-aliasing. As I said before though, the styling and visual effects are different anyway. Starting with this opening cutscene here, and you can see that both versions look almost completely different. I didn't realise how different until I put them together. The differences are quite divisive throughout, and it's totally down to personal preference as to which one you like the look of more, so I'm going to be quiet for a little bit and throw up some gameplay, along with a couple of side-by-side shots.
Engaged. Man down, man down. Maximum speed. Maximum speed. Switch to armor mode and find cover.
So is the Xbox or PS3 version worth playing? Well, the experience is certainly more enjoyable on the Xbox One X, which runs more consistently, but for anyone who has a 7th gen console, a PC not quite capable of running the game, and £20 to spare, it might be worth checking out. But there are other factors to bear in mind as well, like the availability and low cost of what used to be mid-range or high-end graphics cards that will probably give you a much better experience, even today. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching. This video has been a little bit different, but Crysis always finds a way back into my life, and I wanted to share this video because it's something that not everyone may remember, and I think that it's one of those games that everyone wants to play, but not all PCs can handle it. So if you like this video, leave a like on it, leave a dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.